come back sort of like flabby, unable to really get everything that needs doing.
Yeah, the only noises that leave my face are just the wind escaping from my rolls.
I didn't necessarily mean you were chubby. I meant that my skills at sort of podcasting have got a little hefty.
Yeah, it's fine. I guess we'll just hit the intro sting and just roll with it from when it happens.
Because I've just got recorded a podcast.
All right, everyone ready?
Yes.
I want mutes off of everyone, just because I know what Sam's like.
Could have a bit of
hello, and welcome to Stiff Upper Lip Podcast, the NFL podcast. Hello, and welcome to Stiff Upper Lip Podcast, the NFL podcast by Brits. We are in partnership with Gridiron Extra, and we are returning for our third season. So yeah, on we begin with me, Ed.
Me, Emma.
I'm Sam.
I'm Max Saito.
And I'm Tom. Hello, welcome back to the Stiff Upper Lip off-season Wild West, just flubber-fun. We have some exciting news from all around the NFL that we have got to catch up on. But first, how the dickens are all three of you?
So, Tom, how are you?
Yeah, sick.
I'm fine. Yeah,
All right,
no
good.
complaints.
All
I'm
right.
glad we got that sorted.
Yeah, pleasantries out of the way. We were sort of discussing before I hit record that I've forgotten all hosting duties, and that was probably our most awkward intro since the pilot. So let's go.
Okay, we can lean real heavy on the soundboard.
We can. That's a good plan, Matt, Sam. Right.
Come on.
Jesus Christ.
Hello, friends I have met.
7 days.
Like
The
an audition for,
NFL
like a CBBC show.
In our sort of lengthy hiatus, the NFL went a bit mad. We got basically all three phases of off-season free agency, and we're approaching the draft. But just in case anybody hasn't been keeping up to date, we're here to wrap up everything that's happened over the last 9 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, everything you need to know.
We're here to verbatim read every single thing off the NFL's roster transaction wire.
Yeah, I'm just gonna read every single over-the-cap entry for the past, 10 weeks.
Signed, Kyler Fackrell to a reserves future contract.
For your division is how you should say, because we've decided that to speed things up for our own note-taking process, which hasn't happened, we were all going to split it into each of us taking one division each. So I've been assigned the North. Max has the AFC West. Ed has the AFC South, and Sam has the AFC East. We're just doing the AFC in this episode, and the NFC will come just slightly further down the line with a slightly different division order. But for the AFC, we're going to wrap everything up. And I feel like it would be no better place to start than with the Super Bowl runner-up Cincinnati Bengals, who, if you're going to look at who's going into next season with the wind behind their sails, it's going to be the team that was just in the big game, who, what does everyone think to their free agency moves, which are Hayden Hurst signed a 1-year deal, Lyle Collins signed from the Cowboys, a big improvement on the offensive line, Ted Karras, also Alex Kappa. Max is wearing a tenant's cap and pulling his face around. Eli Apple re-signed, Trey Flowers, Jesse Bates has been franchise tagged. Just a whole host of important moves for the Cincinnati Bengals to hopefully build on the momentum of last season. Thoughts, everyone?
It was a bit uninspiring, wasn't it? A little bit
Did
uninspiring.
anyone think that they wouldn't just fix the O-line?
Not
Who got
really.
their big O-line pickups? Ted Karras, Lyle Collins, who always misses games.
Alex Kappa won a ring like 2 years ago and is a very, very dependable guard. I mean, they've certainly, unlike Bengals of yesteryear, they have actually like identified a weakness and resolved it, or attempted to.
Yeah, with
So,
actual money being thrown at the issue as well, which is very unlike the Bengals owners. So
Maybe
Yeah.
having their players being able to train indoors and not having to wade out to the banks of the river Seine. Maybe having them not in like the cold, blustery wasteland of the west side of Cincinnati, whatever. That might help. But you also need players who can play, and I guess it could work out. They haven't really made any massively splashy, to me, pickups. Like,
They're treating Lyle Collins as a splashy one, but you're absolutely right. Like, he has consistently missed games.
I feel like, to me, it's a bit of a red flag when you pick up a player from the Cowboys, because historically with the Cowboys, if they want to keep a guy, they can keep a guy. Like, under Jerry Jones, they've not really had problems with losing guys they wanted to keep. So, obviously, we know he's had health issues, and, is that a bit of a red flag? Maybe. It could go well, but there's also quite a few timelines where it doesn't go well, and they look like they've sort of moved laterally rather than forwards.
I mean, Hayden Hurst for CJ Uzama is a very lateral move at tight end.
I
My
argue
one
it
worry,
might even be a little bit of a down drop, because, I mean, Uzama missed a fair bit of time, but Burrow really liked having him involved in the passing game, especially. I don't really see very much out of Hayden Hurst other than, like, occasional dump-offs. He never really clicked in Baltimore or Atlanta, so, like...
maybe being like the out-and-out number one might be his thing. I was speaking to Kieran a little while ago, and he said that like the Jesse Bates franchise tag, like that he's now convinced that Jesse Bates will leave in free agency next year. He said that their inability to get a deal done before the deadline basically means that Bates is gone. So I think it's good that they've managed to get him for one more year.
It's possible, but if the team's competitive again and they have an offer that they put on the table,
The question is, have they done the least Cincinnati thing possible and actually paid other players to the point where they can't afford Jesse
I don't know.
Bates?
Look at like the safety market. It's not really, NFL teams aren't viewing safeties right now as a really important piece they need to play. Like you wouldn't have thought normally that a guy like Tyrann Mathieu would still be on the market like a week from the draft, but he is, just simply because safeties aren't getting paid right now. But like, how much is it in the grand scheme of the NFL? I don't think the Bengals are really one that we should spend too much time talking about, because they're kind of, like we said, it could go either way. They've not really done anything that makes it, well, yeah, wow.
Were they ever gonna make that kind of move after the season they've had and their faults were so glaring?
I don't know, like, they've got... It remains to be seen whether their success, I think, is replicable next year, or whether it was a bit like capturing lightning in a bottle. You think, looking at their skill position players, that they can compete, but I think, what are their needs in the draft? I would think, like, linebacker and probably cornerback are areas where they'd really want to look to improve.
Well,
I think corner is a very big one.
I think corner is a big one, and I feel like they still see Eli Apple as a solution to a problem that Eli Apple causes.
Is that Chase Bell?
Mike Hilton is a great slot guy. They just signed Trey Flowers as well, but like they could still maybe do with a little bit more beefing up, especially in that position. So You know,
There's a weird number of Trey Flowers in the NFL, right? That's the Trey Flowers who used to play in Seattle.
yes,
Okay, yeah,
and not the
he
Trey
was,
Flowers who used to play in Detroit.
You know, if I had a penny for every time there was a Trey Flowers in the NFL played defense, I'd have two. Yeah, I don't know. Some of these guys on the Bengals defense I've never heard of, and they just went to the Super Bowl. Who the hell is Jermaine Pratt?
He's the inside linebacker. He's the guy who's next to Logan Wilson, who is great. And Pratt is like a sort of strong side linebacker who they could replace. Like when you consider the depth of the linebackers in this year's draft, like
it's a bit stars and scrubs at the moment for Cincinnati, and that's not really where you want to be when your QB's still on the rookie deal. So I think they've got work to do. In an AFC that has generally this year, obviously we'll talk about it, has taken leaps and bounds, but
For sure. All right, let's move on to one of the other divisions and hopefully be able to rattle through some of the less important news than the Super Bowl runner-up Bengals. Ed, would you be happy to talk about anyone in the AFC South, or would we rather leave you till last and just rattle through names like on a teleprompter?
to be clear, it doesn't matter if you'd like to, you have to. That's the confusion.
Yeah, I sort of drew the cyanide pill for this one. You know what? I want to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh,
Is that okay?
That's absolutely... I mean, we're going to have
you
to
don't
anyway,
need to
so
ask
go on then.
the beat of the podcast.
The Doug Peterson Jacksonville Jaguars, by the way. So let that sink in. He's back. Their free agency class was... Would you like me to run through...
Yeah, go on.
Evan Engram.
Oh,
Bolu Fatukasi, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk, right? They did pull off the best free agency pickup in the whole class for me, which was picking Foye Oluokun out of Atlanta, because he is genuinely brilliant.
Do you know, just to quickly stop you, I feel like the main thing about Jacksonville's moves is not the players that they brought in, but the money they spent on said players. Just quickly reiterate just how much money they actually spent on guys like Kirk, Jones, Concrete Hands, Engram.
Free agency.
It's less of a free agency and more of we will pay you 1.5 times what you're worth to get you to come and play in our shithole. Like
The Jags this year didn't do free agency; they did 2 agency. They're that far behind everyone else.
It is true. They have spent an inordinate amount of money. Let me find the Christian Kirk.
I have the figures right here. Kirk 4 years, $72 million, 37 of that guaranteed. Engram just a 1 year deal, but it doesn't say. They signed Zay Jones to a 3 year, $24 million deal. Foye Oluokun 3 year, $45 million deal with $28 million guaranteed.
It's a lot of money, but Oluokun is incredible as an inside linebacker. I will throw that out there.
He's solid. He's not Luke Kuechly. We're not talking about Ryan. He's just sort of a guy, right? If you need a guy to collect an onside kick from the toe of Young Wei Koo, then he's your guy. But that's about the only thing I can remember him doing in his career.
I like him, and I will sort of back him to the hill. And I like Fatukasi as well. But with this draft class and with this sort of new dawn in Jacksonville, it just feels like they've got more players to do the same. They have no elite talent other than potentially Trevor Lawrence, depending.
They lost DJ Chark and replaced him with Kirk and Zay Jones.
Yeah, DJ Chark's, I get why they moved on, because he's spent the last couple of seasons really floundering after that sort of breakout 2019. But I don't know. Yeah, it's a false dawn in Jacksonville because it's more of the same. They filled holes on their roster, but not with players that are necessarily above average. They've just overpaid average guys to come and play in Jacksonville. And that is a house of cards.
Remember when people were, like, head coaches were openly saying they didn't want to go to the Jags because of Trent Baalke, and he's still there?
Yeah.
Why? What was that all about?
He is, like, famously, like, one of the most treacherous men to deal with, like, in terms of...
Surely he must be on the way out. Like,
Are you
this year doesn't...
describing him as some sort of maelstrom man?
That was so bad. I don't even have any words for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that they've brought in, like, Rick Spielman, like, to basically say, Trent, like, calm down, stop paying these ridiculous amounts of money. Like, we've got another guy here who's going to tell you that that's not a good thing to do. It signifies that he might be on his way out, but I don't know. A rising tide lifts all boats. It might just be that the standard of the team will increase.
The tide right now in Jacksonville is like, you know when they say, like, before a massive tsunami hits and the water drops really far back out and you start seeing ancient, like, ruins of the past? That's basically what's happening. I've literally seen this is the lowest tide I've seen from a Trent, and I used to live in Nottingham. This is preposterous.
I kind of understand it, because I do think, like, Valky must be aware that he's probably out soon if they don't start, like, doing something. And it's not like people of, it's not like real premium, like, blue chip players are going to want to go to Jacksonville, so you may as well overpay for people in that, like, middle rung to actually get them, because you might be fucking fired next year anyway. So why don't you pay Christian Kirk,
what if
your money?
And this is a bit of a stretch of the imagination. Now that the biggest terrorist in the NFL, Urban Meyer, has been dismissed, what if, I don't know, Trevor Lawrence plays at an average level, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, maybe we can actually attract some players to come and play with him. We're paying Christian Kirk a $40 million dead cap, or I don't know what the guarantees are, but...
Domestic terrorist.
No-fly list Urban, they call him.
Maybe they just wanted to put out an image that, we hired this real shithead. We can be cool too. Like, hey, take this duffel bag with a $sign on it.
I think we need to move on.
Yeah, I feel like we've spent a little bit too long with Jacksonville. Another couple names that didn't get mentioned. Brendan Schiff has signed with Jacksonville, and Cam Robinson has signed the franchise tag. So, at least Trevor Lawrence is going to be kept upright, maybe, for like 9 games next season.
Oh yeah, franchise tagging Cam Robinson will fix it.
Yeah, franchise tagging Cam Robinson is like, when you buy a new thing of shower gel or whatever, but you use what's left in the bottle first. Yeah, that's sure. Franchise tagging Cam.
All right, Sam, who in the East do you want to look at first?
I feel like we've been very up and down because we talked about the Bengals and then the Jags. I'll say the Jets, I guess. So we can get that out of the way. They've had some interesting pickups. They did manage to get Laken Tomlinson, which I think is fantastic. And probably one of / maybe the best guard available. But there's at least a case to be made for it. They picked up CJ Uzama. They picked up Jordan Whitehead, Tyler Conklin, Greg the fucking Leg.
I miss the Greg the Leg to the Big Apple story.
Yeah. I think this free agency is seems like it's been mostly punctuated by them not being able to get a receiver in after trying so hard for Hill, and I think they were in for Amari Cooper as well. I don't think they've had a terrible off season so far. They lost Fatty Cassie, but you can
what
probably
move
pick
that
up.
is.
I know.
Imagine going from
serviceable.
Imagine going from the Jets to Jacksonville.
And then Off Marcus made to the Saints, which, that's okay.
Do you reckon, with how desperate they are for a receiver, they're picking 4th and 10th overall?
I would be incredibly surprised.
What if they did?
Incredibly surprised if they didn't go receiver.
Yeah,
I don't think they would take a receiver at 10. I think they would, or they certainly wouldn't take a receiver at 4. I wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 6 or 7 probably wide receivers coming up in the draft who would not be surprising to see them go in the first round. So 4 and 10, I don't think there'd be many suitors for 4 because there's not many genuine standout talents. But at 10, there might be some.
You could maybe trade back.
You might want to trade back like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 places, get some picks, and you'll still be able to find a wide receiver that you'll have a high grade on. So maybe we can expect them to do that. I think the NFL at the moment is full of teams who have loads of first-round draft picks and teams who have no first-round draft picks, but they've got veteran players, right? I think at the moment there's 2 distinct schools of thoughts about whether you want the young players who are under cheap contracts or whether you want to go out and get your veterans like the Rams did. So, yeah, I don't know. The Jets have got a lot of gaps in their roster construction. So
yeah, they have, but I think receivers probably the biggest. They did sign Braxton Berrios though.
Gave him $12 million as well. It's a pretty nice contract for the sneaky athletic wide receiver.
Remunerated.
One thing to discuss briefly about the Jets is the Makai Beckton situation, though. Like maybe rumors of this are incredibly overwrought, and it'll all sort of turn out to be a storm in the teacup. But there is a very real sense in New York, apparently, that he's not the long-term answer. Is,
I guess if they end up taking a line with one of their picks, that's a pretty sure sign that Beckton's out. Otherwise, it seems like, as is, they're probably happy with it.
Maybe next year. Maybe that's one that we'll see next year as a need. Because I don't think, as long as he's on the team, there's no point using a premium pick on a tackle. It doesn't really make any sense. They've got 4 top 40 picks, so maybe a bit further down the line too.
Sounds good. Mm-hmm. All right.
And also, I'd be remiss to not remind us that Joe Flacco will once again return to be a guiding hand.
He's got to stay because Broadway is in New York. He's got to get his shot. They're returning that. I should have been the first overall pick, Mike White, Mormon Boy, and Johnny Unitas QB room, right?
For sure. All right, Max, take your pick in the West because
we can finally talk about an interesting team. Thank God. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos. Go Broncos.
What was it?
That's going to take some getting used to.
Go horse.
What did he say?
Go Bronx.
Mount up.
Mount up.
Ride.
Broncos country. Oh god.
He said
so
something.
much more interesting things happened than what the Broncos call themselves. Max, take it away.
It's what Mr. Unlimited calls them, right? Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the headliner is they got Russell Wilson. I think the theme that I'm going to be coming back to in the AFC West is you've got bangs of talent, but some question marks over coaching because obviously the Broncos are a team with a first-year head coach in. Am I still with you guys?
Yeah.
Am I still here?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. I can't miss talking about Nathaniel Hackett, who obviously is Green Bay. He was the offensive coordinator there, and yeah, I think that was part of their plot to try and lure Aaron Rodgers there. They didn't get him. Almost hours after Rodgers signs his extension, they go and get Russell Wilson. I don't think anyone's going to argue that that's not an upgrade. I think there are kind of more question marks over Russell Wilson than there were early in his career, but
Yeah,
I mean
at Cuba, the quarterback room did lose, let's not forget, Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. So who's to say whether this was a good move or not?
Exactly. It is impossible to distinguish, but I mean, with the receiving talent the Broncos have got there, all they need is someone who isn't a total stiff, and you'd expect them to show a significant improvement. And I don't think Russell Wilson's a total stiff, for the record. So, to me, it
was the only move they could have made. Like, they weren't going to be getting Rodgers, so I like it for them.
The actual terms of the deal as well are so like weird, almost Madden-esque, but you couldn't even make this trade in Madden because there's too many things in there for Madden to be able to actually register it. A 4th-round pick. Wilson was traded to the Broncos with a 4th-round pick for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-rounders, a 5th-rounder, QB Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and Shelby Harris, all sent back to Seattle. So, crazy deal.
Can you imagine the Seattle think pieces that are like, Shelby Harris?
I think the Broncos low-key still have quite a lot of needs. And they're on the defensive side, which hasn't really been the case. It wasn't really the case in the Fangio era, but I think it's like, it might be time to say, like, is Bradley Chubb really like, oh God. He heard me say that. It might be time to say, Bradley Chubb is certainly a guy that still has a lot of potential. He's still young, but is he going to consistently be available? And is he going to play at that peak? They lost Justin Reed. Oh no, that was a Texans. I think they've lost a couple of pieces in the secondary. It's certainly not the Broncos defense that you come to expect, but yeah, with Wilson and Hackett, who I do rate as like an attacking like genius, it will be interesting to see. It will be interesting to see a different version of the Broncos that don't score average like 1.2 points per drive or whatever.
Yeah,
for sure.
They've also got Javon Holland as well, which is like, is it Javon Holland, the running back? What's his name?
Javonte Williams.
Javonte Williams, that's it.
They did pick up Randy Gregory as well, which I thought was pretty nice.
Yeah, Randy Gregory for a 5-year, $70 million deal. And then they got DJ Jones as well to play on the inside of that D-line. Malik Reed, Alex Singleton. They re-signed Kareem Jackson as well for a year. So some moves were at least made. That Randy Gregory one was so weird as well because the Cowboys had basically announced that he'd like wrapped up a deal, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, Randy Gregory's signing with the Broncos. Great.
But you know that it was the same with Zadarius Smith. Do you know the reason for this?
Why?
We'll come on to it a little bit later. So it was the Chandler Jones contract that basically reset defensive ends, and then Randy Gregory and Zadarius Smith were suddenly feeling like they were underpaid at their new places. So like you sign a contract and then immediately try and renegotiate.
Just quickly after like one team from each division so far, this is definitely like the free agency that reset a lot of people's values.
Reset
I'd
a
say.
lot of market.
It reset the market in almost like every key position, I felt. So we'll keep an eye on that because there's still some names out there that could still get paid, but we turn our attention to. I think I'm going to turn our attention to a nice, easy one to wrap through. The Baltimore Ravens.
Do a speed round.
A speed round? What, for like everyone in this second bracket?
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm going to pick the Ravens, who basically just re-signed a bunch of their key players and got Marcus Williams for the secondary as well. They'll also the big thing for the Ravens isn't their free agency, it's their injury list. Because if they can get all of those pieces back, it'll be like having like 18 free agency signings in 1 year. So great piece of business to re-sign Patrick Ricard, Calais Campbell, getting Michael Pierce and Morgan Moses, and then obviously Marcus Williams, 5-year, $70 million with 37 guaranteed. That's going to be a strong Ravens team next year. Anyway, second division. Ed, back to you.
The light-in team for me to discuss then very quickly is the Tennessee Titans.
They basically upgraded the sort of hole that Julio Jones left by picking up Robert Woods. Even though coming off a sort of a season-ending injury, that feels like maybe the right thing to do. The first order of business for Tennessee, though, was getting the band back together and carrying on. They've managed to keep Brett Curtin, which was a real concern going into this, that he might be poached. I think the only other thing really to say about the Titans is that the chickens are going to come home to roost next year. There is a huge amount of players who are on 1 year or 1 year with avoided year deals that they the squad for the 2023 season could look so different.
That's okay. They'll save money by paying Teddy Bridgewater to play quarterback for them.
Well, they got Harold Landry back in on a 5-year deal, so that's at least covering him. But yeah, that could be an interesting next season. Happy to move on, Ed?
Yeah,
Any obvious holes?
Sam?
Any obvious holes? I mean, the biggest hole that I can find is tight end, because they have no one, as far as I can tell.
They got Austin Hooper.
Did they get Austin Hooper?
Yeah, on a 1 year deal. They also signed Jeff Swaim, so they have 2 tight ends this free agency.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Are you sure, Jeff? All right then. Well, in that case, the need probably it does turn back to someone else who can catch the ball from Ryan Tannehill, because Nick Westbrook-Akina being your third choice wide receiver is not the way to go. Look for a wide receiver with that sort of late first round pick.
Cool. Sam, AFC East.
I think the least interesting one to talk about that's left is probably the Patriots. I think the Patriots have made one good move, and the rest are very confusing to me. They got Devontae Parker in from Miami, which I think is a pretty great, addition for relative peanuts. They haven't really brought that many people in, of note anyway. They brought in Jabril Peppers. They brought in Ty Montgomery, running back.
I can't believe he's still in the league.
Yeah, Ty Montgomery seems like he's been bouncing around practice squads for the best part of 5 years now.
He's 30?
He's got to be close to 30.
It's funny we were mentioning ages.
Malcolm Butler. Malcolm Butler is back on the Patriots. That is such a Patriots thing to do, is to sign just a guy from... you let him go, and then they don't enjoy themselves that much elsewhere, and you just bring him back.
We've seen the yo-yo, the sort of Patriots yo-yo on so many occasions.
And of course, they re-signed Matt Slater, so
Hero.
that's comforting.
Traded for Mac Wilson. Picked up, managed to re-sign Trent Brown.
Yeah. Chase Winovich in that Wilson trade. C. Jackson's gone.
They traded Shaq Mason to Tom Brady's team. That was weird.
For a 5th round pick. the Shaq Mason trade, I don't understand it anyway. And the final kind of dagger to the heart, they have lost Gordon Olszewski.
Oh, we'll come on to him later. All right.
I love when I get to find out about off-season moves when a Google byline starts with special teams ace.
All right. Max, AFC West, take your pick for who's going to get a lightning round.
Should have saved the Broncos. Well, it's kind of hard to... There's a lot going on in the AFC West this summer. I'm going to have to pick the Kansas City Chiefs, which is a funny thing to say. Ignore that sound, please. That was my Kansas City Chiefs ringing. It goes up. I've rigged it to go off every time I think about Juan Thornhill. So they obviously lost Tyreek Hill, which was quite unexpected. I think it's fair to say that escalated extremely quickly. They replaced him with Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who, if you added them together, is probably about 3/5 of the player that Tyreek Hill was in that system. I mean, wide receiver is definitely a need, but in theory, you'd like to say that the quarterback play would elevate the talent around him. In theory. They got Justin Reed. It was quite quiet otherwise. I guess you could say they brought in Ronald Jones, but I won't waste my breath. It's kind of a key draft for they've got something like 4 picks in the top 100 or maybe more. So it's kind of a key draft for this era of Chiefs football because with the guaranteed contracts that are going out in the moment, I know Mahomes obviously is signed for until 2030 or something like that, 2031 maybe. But I kind of think that there's going to be a holdout because he's got a lot of leverage, and maybe like in a few years' time, you will see him asking for like a 1-year extension and rework that money. It's possible, and when you get into that situation, it's well documented. You've got a franchise quarterback; you have to pay to the detriment of the talent around him. And I think if the Chiefs miss on picks this year, 2 years' time, Kelsey's getting older. You know, they've got some pieces on the offensive line who are getting older. The Chiefs could genuinely end up being one of the most talent-poor teams in the NFL. And that's quite weird to say. But at the moment, they've only got a few players you'd hang your hat on. Like, obviously, you've got a few nice pieces on the offensive line. Creed Humphrey, Orlando Brown Jr. You've got, obviously, Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes. That helps having Patrick Mahomes. But when you're looking at these other positions, you know, Brett Veach needs to have a big draft, I think, because
I mean, he had a big draft last year. Creed Humphrey and Nick Bolton, like with your first 2 picks.
Nick Bolton is a very sure tackler, but he's a bit more in like the mold of a run stuffer than like a true, you know, field captain of the defense, if that makes sense. So he plays alongside, I guess it's Willie Gay, and that isn't overly inspirational to me. So yeah, they need some like impact players to come in because I mean, God knows Chiefs fans are fed up with Mecole Hardman. I think the clock is starting to tick on that Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick as well. So let's see, maybe Mahomes and Kelsey come in it by themselves.
Speaking of clock starting to tick, that was meant to be the lightning round.
Westbrook.
There's still so many teams that are way more interesting. Okay, I'm going to go back to the north and get the final team without really any controversy out of the way this offseason. And a very transitional year for the Pittsburgh Steelers as Mitchell Trubisky will be leading from under center. Signed a 2-year, $14 million deal. So, you know, paying backup money for your starter, that's not half bad for a veteran as well. Obviously, it is also Mitchell Trubisky, though, so...
I was about to say, that was polishing a turd right there.
Yeah.
That was ultimate turd polishing.
They also signed...
Expectations accordingly.
They also signed James Daniels on a 3-year deal from the Bears, which very, very accomplished run-blocking guard, I think. Mason Cole to play center, which was a massive need. Miles Jack is in at middle linebacker, alongside Brian Flores, who joined the team as as a linebackers coach and a defensive assistant. So I think that's a pretty...
You made it a little bit like he was going to be playing the will.
That's Akello Witherspoon is back. He had a great end to last season. Really proved it. And Levi Wallace, Arthur Mowlett, Miles Killebrew. They've made a lot of very smart moves to address a fair amount of holes while also still leaving a little bit of money left in the tank and also still having like a fairly decent set of draft picks. This is a pretty decent sort of baseline for the Steelers. Sadly, it's not all been roses for the Steelers and in general for the NFL as backup quarterback and potentially maybe battling to start this season. Dwayne Haskins, an Ohio State absolute legend, sadly passed away very recently in a car accident in Florida. So very, very sort of sad news, really, about the Steelers. But yeah, sad day for all in the NFL. A guy that, unfortunately, Adam Schefter had to throw in there about his struggles, but there was one thing that you could say about Dwayne Haskins, and that is that he was an incredibly popular figure within the locker room for everyone that he played for. So we wish his family all the best, and yeah, not a great way to sort of end a massive free agency signings by having a guy that I mean, by all accounts, the organization thought like incredibly highly of him. I mean, he was working out with all of the starters down in Florida when this whole accident happened. So, yeah, not great, but there you go. That's the Steelers signings. Happy to move on.
Okay, is it me to take it up next?
It is, yeah.
The team, I suppose, the team I actually wanted to talk about the most, I'll save till last. So we'll talk about the Indianapolis Colts if we can now. The biggest signing has to be the fact that Carson Wentz has left, and in his place comes maybe the safest pair of hands in the whole NFL in Matt Ryan. Like in terms of a man with like the height now.
Are you
Matt
thinking
Ryan's...
of the goalkeeper, Matt Ryan?
No, I'm thinking of the fact that his ceiling and floor is basically a line at this point, but he's still markedly better than Carson Wentz. He's probably better than Phillip Rivers was. He's better than Brissett was. So at least the Colts are sort of going to be experiencing higher than average to average QB play for a team that like all that was all they really needed last year. Like just someone to manage the game, to help them out and let them win. And I think that the thing that stuck out to me most for the Colts is that they don't have a first round pick, but they do have this sort of like early second round pick where one of these QBs is going to fall. Is it a Sam Howell? Is it a Matt Corral? Is it a Desmond Ridder? That's the one that really is speaking to me in that sort of like 43rd, 42nd overall pick. But I think that their biggest need other than that for me is safety. Like, starting in this day and age with Justin Blackman and Kari Wills as your two starting safeties is...
Hey, Rodney McLeod.
I'm not... Anyone who's played in the Eagles secondary that isn't Darius Slay is a cursed object in my mind.
Andrew Sendejo?
Yep. So yeah, I mean, more of the same for the Colts, but only with hopefully more dependable play from Matt Ryan and third-year fireworks from Jonathan Taylor.
I mean, they had some Stephon Gilmore.
Steph Gilmore, that's true. He only arrived the other day. I hadn't even thought about it. Yeah, Steph Gilmore is great.
Yeah, and Ngakoue as well.
Ngakoue less so for me, because
Wasn't he the Vikings' leader of sacks, and he left in week 8?
Yeah. And Ngakoue is brilliant against the pass. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's a remarkably good sort of like pass rusher. But against the run, there maybe isn't a worse run-stuffing defensive end in the whole league than Yannick Ngakoue. So
that's a ballsy call, that is, Ed. That's a ballsy call.
It must say a lot about the culture of a team to kind of jump out of a moving car.
Are you talking about 2 years ago with the Vikings? Because I 1,000% agree with you. as a surface, I don't know why we're getting onto this, but as a surface, that it wasn't a safe or nice environment to be. I think Ngakoue can thrive, and I think that he can play a very decent role in what is an above-average defense. But I think they'd be very, very wise to consider him a rotational piece at best in early downs.
That's fair. All right. Max, AFC East.
No, that's not me.
Sam, AFC East, sorry. My bad.
I wouldn't touch that with a 6-foot division touching pole.
I guess I thought looking at this division would be worse, but it's ended up being somewhat of an embarrassment of riches. I guess I'll talk about the Bills, because I think the Dolphins, obviously they're not as good a team, but I think the offseason's been a bit more interesting. I mean, the Bills brought in Von Miller on a huge contract, which I think is, like, obviously, I think it's like a 6-year contract.
Hey, some years?
6 years, $120 million. 51 in guarantees as well.
Yeah, I assume that's a very, like, front-loaded contract. But I think it's a pretty great get for them. It's not like they had any glaring holes, but someone like Von Miller, you'd hope, would kind of help to push them over the top. Apart from that, they picked up Jamison Crowder, which, the way the Bills play, I guess there's always going to be a high, like, turnover of receivers. So they lost Manny Sanders and they lost Cole Beasley. I think Jamison Crowder's a pretty good pickup for them. Roger Saffold, guard, from the Titans. OJ Howard to sit behind Dawson Knox. They get Duke Johnson in at running back, which is, They re-signed Diggs, which is, kind of integral to what they do at this point. And they lost Mitch Trubisky.
I feel like that pretty much wraps up the Bills. I don't really have anything else to mention. I mean, they re-signed Shaq Lawson. They extended Mitch Morse.
Yeah, well, it was never going to be the most, like, splash off season for a team with so few areas of, like, need. But I guess in the draft they'll be looking at, like, maybe an interior O-line. Maybe, I mean, it'd be nice to have, some better running backs in that room. Because Zach Moss and Duke Johnson don't exactly get the heart a fluttering. But...
Devin Singletree there, isn't he?
Oh yeah, Singletree.
I mean, still, your point stands. They're in a nice position where they can get some nice luxury choices through the door.
Yeah, every pick is going to be a luxury pick.
Every round of the draft.
All they have to do is draft well, though, and I feel like there's a part of me that wants to just pencil them into a Super Bowl. Like, all they need to do is, like, draft a player at the value of the draft pick, and they'll. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
All you have to do is draft well. Just draft a player at the value of the pick.
Really going, like, inside the GM room here.
Okay, so Brandon Beane has drafted incredibly well over the past few years. Like, there's a reason they've got Matt Milano, Trey White, Terrell Edmonds, Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Like, these are picks that the man has hit on.
Would you be concerned if you were Mr. Bean that Josh Allen...
Yes.
Josh Allen's meteoric rise was in part influenced by having the steadying hand of Mitchell Trubisky in the quarterback room.
I really thought you were going to say Brian Daboll, like, offensive genius, but...
So, like,
that should also...
Is your argument, like, he's the anti-Rodgers, in that Aaron Rodgers played best when he had, like, sort of a capable backup behind him in Jordan Love, but, like, Josh Allen knew that there was an enormous safety net with Mitchell Trubisky so far below him that he was playing with the freedom that created.
Hey, to be fair, apparently Trubisky, very popular guy in the locker room in Buffalo. Maybe it's not about his talent, but about just his locker room leadership.
Yeah, future quarterback guru Mitchell Trubisky.
All right.
Yeah, go Bills.
Max,
I
AFC
remember when I was
West.
talking about the AFC West having bags of talents but questionable coaching. The Raiders, Josh McDaniels' Las Vegas outfit, their key pickups in the offseason, I don't know, Chandler Jones and Bilal Nichols. I think that's about it. Oh, and they re-signed Derek Carr. And they, I think that was it.
Was there anyone else? I feel like
Did they manage to keep hold of Kenyon Drake?
no, I'm thinking maybe like an old Fresno State player, maybe. You know, someone who was there when Carr was there.
The Bulldog from Fresno State. Okay, so they traded for Devontae Adams, allegedly.
That's
it. That's it.
No, yeah, obviously they went and got Adams and reunited him. It's kind of funny to me to imagine that Devontae Adams was just sat there like, I simply have got to play with my best friend Derek. It's just a bit of a funny scenario because he turned down an equivalent offer, if you believe the Packers, to play with Derek Carr, which is very funny.
I mean, it could be a bigger draw than you think when all you've had so far is the most curmudgeonly man.
That's not true. He's caught touchdowns from Brett Hundley,
Brett.
Deshaun Kaiser. No, it's fine. It's fine, Derek. It's fine. They've still got quite a lot of needs, I think. Interior defensive line, they're pairing Chandler Jones, who's probably one of the more mercurial players in the NFL. He's always seems to start a season like, wow, this guy's going to get 29 sacks, and you don't hear from him for months. But across from Max Crosby, who's obviously playing well, their offensive line, which was obviously dismantled by John Gruden and friends, played better at the end of last year. They sort of went as Colton Miller went, which was kind of a little strange because, he certainly improved, but they could definitely use some help on the offensive line. And then safety, I would say, is a need. Linebacker, inside linebackers probably need, and probably a little bit of help required at cornerback as well. So they've got a lot to write home about. I think they've made some splashy plays. I'm on record as a Derek Carr liker, so I think they're set up for some, or at least more success than they were. But Josh McDaniels, I don't know.
I mean, speaking of splashy, have we mentioned Kyler Fackrell?
3-sack fact? No, I don't think we have. Actually, wait, yes, I did.
That's how notable that man is.
What?
I mean, I think the question I just wanted to ask is the Jonathan Abram era over in the Raiders end? Because obviously Mayrig is like the free safety, but is it strong safety that you feel like is the...
I don't know. I think there's a few players with the last era of the Raiders who I have questions about going into the season. Darren Waller's trying to prove that he wasn't a one-hit wonder. Jonathan Abrams has never quite... Josh Jacobs has never quite lived up to... He had a nice rookie season, but he's never become like a Joe Mixon or like a, that upper echelon of running back. So lots of questions.
The weirdest part about Josh Jacobs, because I get this criticism, honestly, but when Emma and I went to see Raiders Bears, Josh Jacobs was comfortably the best player on the pitch by like a literal country mile. Like, I have no idea why he came to play in London, but he was so much better than anyone else.
Play a good team, they would have had a better player on the other side.
Maybe. So I think I am like biased in Josh Jacobs' favour because in the one game that I've seen him physically, he was dominant.
I don't know. He disappears at times. He does disappear.
Okay, let's move on to the final team in each division and probably the real market teams in terms of their free agency. I'm gonna have to unfortunately talk about the Clowns over in Cleveland, where the biggest news story maybe of the entire off season is that Deshaun Watson has been acquired in a trade with Houston, along with a sixth-round pick, in exchange for 3 first-rounders, a third-rounder, and 2 fourth-round picks. He's getting a guaranteed 5-year, $230 million contract from Cleveland, and I'm gonna just outright put this out here right now. The contract is fucking disgusting because he still has 22 open civil cases of sexual misconduct, to put it lightly, and Cleveland, knowing that he might be suspended for the first year, didn't give him any money for this year so that he would get all of it over the next 4 years. It is disgusting. So that's where I'm starting my fucking Browns point. Your free agency is a joke, and Jimmy Haslam needs to hang his head in shame. The rest of your team doesn't matter, but just in case it did, Amari Cooper has joined the team so that he can be thrown under the bus by someone. David Njoku gets the franchise tag. You know, Chase Vinovich is there. Oh yeah, Denzel Ward is now getting paid a shit ton of money too. But Deshaun Watson, for an organisation that's fan base has just spent the last 18 years crying about Ben Roethlisberger's 2 cases, you all forgot that fucking quickly as soon as Deshaun Watson came in the door, you jackasses. Fucking Cleveland.
What if the fans didn't put the contracts on the table?
The real victim here, Ben Roethlisberger's reputation.
No, I'm not having this to be turned into this. Deshaun Watson can't be allowed to keep getting away with this.
Yeah, would you agree with that?
There's no point. There's no point scoring here, other than like 1-0 to human indecency. I guess is the current score.
I feel like in the NFL, it's definitely more like it's a cricket score. It's more like 419 for 6 at this point.
Declared.
Yeah. It's not even been declared. There's still about 4 hours left of batting.
I'm afraid to say it's afternoon tea, and it's not looking like decency is going to even get to.
But no, for real, I don't give a shit about what this team does from now on. I didn't really give that much of a fuck about them before, but now, Jesus Christ.
Do you want to move on, Tom?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Wait, hang on. Let's spend a few more minutes. This is kind of fun. Get out of here! Get out! I don't want to.
Yeah. Fuck off. Take your Andrew Sandeo with you and piss off back down the Ohio River, you fucking dick.
That's one of the biggest strays of all time. Back to back. Andrew Sandeo is walking out of this podcast like fucking Boromir. No, honestly, let's not talk about the Browns this season. We'll waste our time.
Yeah,
get the fuck out.
And just to sort of let everyone know very quickly, the Browns will be in the Royal Rumble, or the over the top rope draft extravaganza, as we tried to get around the name of Royal Rumble, which is copyrighted. But you can guarantee that if I'm picking first, they're over the bleeding top rope. Straight away, get gone.
I would say the same, but I guarantee if we do it, I'm going to forget and accidentally put like the Panthers over or something.
You're not going to. Yeah.
Well, Panthers are kind of boring, not morally objectionable, but no.
But yeah, the wheels are in motion for that one to take place. So keep your ears peeled, and maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to get some additional special guests involved. Last year we had Kev. Will Kev be back? Will we have somebody else instead? Or maybe in addition to? Anyway.
Stay tuned for the Royal
extravaganza
Grumble.
Of drafting teams over
oh my god, the Royal Grumble. Did you
Royal
not just
Grumble.
Hear that, Tom?
Alright.
My only other thought in my head that I could have said was the Royal Lee Trundle.
Jesus Christ.
Alright, let's move on. Sam. Oh wait, no, it's Ed. Sorry, Ed. Sorry, forgot about the fact that the AFC South. Ed.
Yeah.
Houston.
You know, sometimes the best thing that you can do to get better is to sever the gangrenous limb and just sort of like it's a new dawn in Houston, and it's a Deshaun Watson-less dawn. Like they
playing the role of Ernest Shackleton.
He's playing Schiff there. Is that Joe Flacco?
Like, there's plenty to be not excited about for the Houston Texans. Like, let's be real. Like, signing Steven Nelson maybe isn't the sort of absolute glory pick that we all wanted, but they suddenly have the tools in sort of like the draft with the first round picks. Honestly, there is so little to like about this team other than now they have like sort of applied a tourniquet and removed that hideous like seething limb.
Quick question though. Put your hand up if you know who the head coach of the Houston Texans is. Oh, it's
Lovie Smith, right?
Fucking Lovie Smith, dog.
It's Lovie Smith. Yeah. Third trip around the sun.
Like, the only way for the Houston Texans now is up. Like, it might be slow, and it might be a long time before they even reach the middle of the mountain. But at least they're out. Like, everything that B.O.B. did to ruin this team is in the back door. Like, the Deshaun Watson saga is in the back door, and now they can sort of finally begin to heal.
Is it just me, or is it like this? It feels like with how this free agency has been applied, as in they have literally signed like at least one of it feels like every position, maybe even several of every position.
None of them are of consequence.
It's genuinely like they've started as an expansion team again. We've gone back to 2003 with Houston.
It's a little bit like they've foolishly gone to the shop on an empty stomach.
I know that he's like a popular scapegoat in this, but when you are re-signing Camu Grugier-Hill to a 1-year, $4 million contract, like, how are there not better options?
That's not even a guarantee that you make the roster.
No.
And the thing is they still have the second most active available cap space right now.
They have a 4-year, $52 million on the offer on the table from Jacksonville.
I'll tell you who they do have. Marlon Mack.
They do.
Oh, wow.
Fresh off of a torn ACL and then being benched for a far superior running back.
There must be a musical cue we can use for this. How about Mack Street back?
No, because the next one I was going to say is like more deserving of a music spike for me.
Janovich?
No, the thing I was going to say is that at the moment, Danny Amandola is still out there in the wilderness. Are we thinking one more year, play it back?
Who will stoop down to pick up this penny on the floor of the NFL?
It's like they've got sort of like a dollar bill on a fishing line, and they're just stood around the corner, just while Ogbo Okoronkwo shows up through the.
I like Okoronkwo, so I can't. I didn't want to include him in the narrative because I actually think he's all right.
Of course, he's a Wilkins guy.
it's like instead of a Heyman guy, it's a Wilkins guy, and it's just Ogbo Okoronkwo.
It's just defensive ends with African names.
It is. It literally is. All you've said so far is just unbelievable.
And of course. Like nebulous, kind of good safeties, free safeties.
The thing is the thing that I see whenever I'm looking at like the Texans list of franchise like expansion players is where Jacksonville would have given Brandon Cooks $70 million on a 3-year deal and like Chris Conley on a, let's say, 3-year $22 million deal. They've at least signed everyone for dirt cheap, so it feels as though they've at least not overpaid in their splurging, like Christian Kirksey for 2 years, $10 million. That's
I remember
fine.
that guy.
That's a fine deal for like roster fodder.
Yeah. It's like someone went, just make a team, and they were like, all right.
Yeah.
This is a team.
yeah.
We
like-
have all the players we require.
It's what happens if you are like in a 20-man NFL fantasy team and you accidentally have it auto pick everything up until like the 8th round and it just picks injury.
Oh, I
play.
drafted Zach Zenner twice.
Yeah. Oh boy, Blake Cashman's playing for me now.
Yeah. The most you can say about it is that it is a football team.
yeah, these are at least NFL players. All right.
And the least you can say about it is, shall we move on?
Yeah, let's move on to a team that have actually gone out and made a splash. Which is funny. Sam, those
Yes.
Miami Dolphins.
Those Miami Dolphins. And I know who you're alluding to, Tom. And yes, Teddy Bridgewater. Moving down to Miami, baby.
Steady.
Yeah, Dolphins had a fucking great offseason. We get into people that actually brought in. They re-signed Xavier Howard. Great. Cool. Very nice. Gesicki staying on the franchise tag. Also cool and good. And they re-signed Emmanuel Ogbah, who was overperformed for quite some time. Tyreek Hill.
Imagine what's going to happen when Tyreek Hill realises that their offense is a 20-yard maximum.
Well, it might not be.
Yeah.
This is the thing.
The main question to me about I don't actually know the answer to this, Sam, so maybe you can help me. Have they got a new offensive coordinator in?
Or have they whittled it down to one guy at all? Or is it still to those two fucking clowns?
That I don't know.
They still got two guys wearing one of those big, when American parents buy their kids like the get-along shirts, so they put one shirt over as a team next one. There are two guys walking around in that and like a massive pair of trousers, just like, pull the H back in.
But yeah, Tyreek Hill, I think, is obviously a fantastic pickup. I do not think it will be a 20-yard offense. This dude is fantastic in the short game.
Can I ask you a question? Who's the third quarterback on Miami's depth chart? Because they're going to play at least 2 games. So it's best that we find out now.
Is it Mike Gesicki?
No.
Let's have a look. Oh, wait. Is it Jake Brisket?
I
Yeah,
feel
he's still
like
there.
one
It's
thing that I
Chris-
will say,
it's
just quickly,
Chris
is the
Trevor.
Dolphins are way more interesting than any other team in terms of their free agency this year. Why are we on about their third choice quarterback?
Because we're going
Exactly.
to see him. Because Tua is going to be uninspiring and then get hurt in week 5. Teddy's going to come in and be uninspiring and then get hurt in week 9. And then we've got 3 weeks of Streveler again.
Let's just.
I mean,
there
all we
is-
have to see that picture
there's-
of him with no shirt.
There's
All
a
the
name
fucking
that can help this team not be so fucking quick dink and dunk. And his name's Teron Armstead.
Yeah.
He's going to underimpress and get hurt in week 5.
And also, like, the left tackle is a far less important position on a team where the right tackle is the blind side.
Just teach him to play right tackle, it's fine, fuck it.
Yeah.
That's going to be great. Ron
More than
Armstead's
most
going to
people
hold his
have.
block for 5 seconds. 1.5 seconds longer than the rest of the offensive line.
Hey, you leave Connor Williams out of
I
this.
only got hit by 10 limbs on that one. I'm used to 13.
Chase Edmonds.
Yes.
Alex Ingold.
Yes.
Oh, Alec.
Yes. How the Raiders let him leave.
My apologies. Apart from
Cedric
that-
Wilson?
Yes, Cedric Wilson.
Raheem
Yeah,
Mostert, who was
Wilson,
Cedric-
Waddle got
explosive
hit.
as all hell in the Niners offense.
Wilson, Waddle, and Hill is the best receiving trio in the NFL.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
I
So
would
if
not
Chris
say so.
Streveler can't make it happen with those three,
And then they've got like
Who-
Preston
what
Williams coming
receiving
back for
core?
another year. So like they
Yeah.
have 4 guys that could easily start for the Houston Texans.
Are you guys? Sorry, just to be clear, are you guys actually getting Chase Boyd and Higgins?
What?
That is a better wide receiver trio.
Mm,
I'd say that
I don't think it is.
yeah. I think that there might be a case to be made, but I don't think it's right.
Okay, sorry. Get back to your point.
It's going to be a fantastic offense to watch. Tua can get the ball out very quickly and very accurately, as long as you're not more than, say, 7 yards away from him. And then they've got enough people that are like explosive and quick enough to like make plays downfield.
Tyreek Hill
wins.
is going to be throwing a fit like halfway through the season when Jalen Waddle gets 31 targets in a game.
And also the interior O-line just collapsed.
It's all so predictable. Who's the head coach? Oh,
it's
Mike McDaniel.
yeah.
Mm.
Who might be the weirdest man in the NFL, by the way. Every interview that I've seen that he's done, he is the most awkward human being maybe in a sport league in the world.
Oh god,
Yeah,
everyone's
only
going
it's
to
more
get
awkward people.
so on board the McDaniel's hype train, and I'm just going to be.
Who's this
Fitzpatrick
everyone?
I'm kind of already there.
It's going to be like my Fitzpatrick too.
Is Fitzpatrick still out there?
Technically, yes.
Yes, I think there was a lot of fear that his hip injury would be career ending. But I think he is still
Was
in
anyone
contract.
that scared about that?
Me?
That
Yeah, the league is better because it has Ryan Fitzpatrick.
don't
It'll be a
think
sad
it
day
is.
when we leave.
Save it for the NFC episode because
Yeah.
he's technically still NFC.
Yeah, come on. All right, let's wrap this up with the final team of the AFC that we haven't talked about, and fresh off of getting a jersey of this team from winning the Predictions League and wearing it right now, Max, take it away with your LA Chargers.
I wish I had a more impactful name just now, but yeah,
I could have got. Wait, hang on. Do you want me to go for it again, but give you the full?
No. Give me a different name, like Impact.
Impact Makoto.
Impact. Forget it. The Chargers made some nice additions. They made some nice additions. They got J.C. Jackson. That's good. They got Khalil Mack. Okay, I have my issues with that player. They re-signed Mike Williams. They brought in Gerald Everett. They brought in Sebastian Joseph Day, who presumably doesn't even need to move house. He's flipped from the blue side of Los Angeles to the blue side of Los Angeles. They haven't lost too many key pieces, I don't think. They lost Brian Balaga, who's pretty old now. But I would say offensive line and defensive line, interior defensive line are areas where they still need to improve. Probably interior line backing as well, potentially. I think it's the thing with the Chargers is every year it's like, oh, this team is better than last year. So what is it? What's it going to be? Is it going to be injuries? Is it going to be, the coach is going to have we know he goes for it. We know he likes a little roll of the dice. Is he going to come up snake eyes 850 times in a row against almost astronomically impossible odds? It's not astronomically impossible for the Chargers. They'll pull it off. I don't know. They're an exciting team. Would you say they're the favourites for the division? That's a dangerous thing to say about the Chargers. But
yeah, I don't want to think that.
The reason that they can't... I don't want to say there's no reason that they can't win the division, but what I will say is the reason that they can't win the division has not yet presented itself to us. I'm sure something will come up. I'm sure Justin Herbert will sustain some sort of horrible, late drought-related injury, or I don't know, maybe LA will be split in twain by horrible seismic fault activities. It's all in the offing, frankly, because the Chargers
and
are set up for
he's
success.
got 1 foot on either side of a tectonic plate.
Oh god, yeah. In the middle of a play. Yeah, that'd be terrible.
The thing,
I mean,
for the Chargers is like Khalil Mack is a great signing. The problem comes though is that people are sort of looking at this Bosa and Mack tandem, which will be incredibly terrifying until Bosa tears his ACL in week 4.
then
It'll be just Khalil
dominate
Mack in Chicago again, where he's triple teamed and can't make anything happen, and he doesn't record a sack for 12 more weeks, and it's fine. I
honestly don't know if at this particular stage would I say Joey Bosa is better than the level that Robert Quinn played at last year for Chicago. I don't know, maybe his peak is better than that, but on like a level of consistency, there's a lot of questions remaining. I think, the Chargers have got some needs, but man, I don't want to let myself. The temptation of the Chargers is like, imagine watching an advert for like a bar of Galaxy chocolate, and there's a woman in a white dress, which is my football fandom, and she's hovering above like a shimmering chocolate ocean. It's a little bit like that scene in Get Out, but with chocolate instead. And I'm in fact, maybe actually the Get Out metaphor is much more appropriate. I'm fighting so hard. I don't want to be like the Chargers, man. It's happening. I don't want that to happen because I know how it ends. It's not happening. Something's going to happen. I don't know what it is yet, but it's going to. And in conclusion, Chargers 7-10 this year.
My favourite thing about the whole Chargers roster.
I've got like severe temptation to give in to the overwhelming chocolatey sea of pleasure of the LA Chargers.
How do you follow that with a point? My God.
Well, luckily that was the last thing we have to cover, right? So let's just leave.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know if I might have just missed this, but did you mention JC Jackson?
Yeah.
Sorry.